Greetings, warrior of the present. Today is not just another day. You are here for a reason, because deep inside you, there's a voice that refuses to settle, a voice that demands more, that seeks answers the modern world has failed to give. And maybe, just maybe, you're beginning to suspect what others still can't see. That modern man, lost among screens, noise, and empty promises, needs something time has never been able to destroy: ancient wisdom. We live in an age of technological breakthroughs, instant information, and comforts never before imagined. But paradoxically, we also live in an age of anxiety, existential emptiness, and disconnection. Isn't that strange? How can today's man have so much and yet feel so little? This is where what many have forgotten comes in: the wisdom of the ancients. I'm not talking about superstitions or archaic rituals. I'm talking about principles, values, that invisible structure that made a man firm, serene, powerful, unshakable in the face of chaos. While many crawl around seeking likes and external validation, you're here asking yourself, what if true strength comes from looking backward? Take the Stoics, for example. Men like Marcus Aurelius, who bore the weight of an empire on his shoulders and still found peace in simplicity, discipline, and mastering his mind. How many men do you know today who can look in the mirror and say with honesty, I rule over my life? Very few, because that soul muscle the ancients trained daily has been lost. Today, modern man is entertained, but not forged. He is informed, but not transformed. He moves, but does not advance. Can you feel it? You are not here because it's trendy. You're here because deep inside you is something older than any technology. The need for purpose, for order, for inner struggle. Something your ancestors carried in their blood, and the modern world tries to silence with cheap distractions. And you're not like the rest. If you were, you wouldn't be listening to this. You know that inside you there's a sleeping warrior, a silent philosopher, a leader who doesn't need followers, just truth. That's why instead of chasing the latest trend, you turn your eyes to what is eternal, because you understand there is something deeply masculine, deeply human in embracing the wisdom of those who walk before you. And you know what? They didn't have your comforts. They didn't have your options, but they had clarity. They had courage. They had codes, and you can reclaim them. You just need to remember who you are and where you come from. This isn't about nostalgia or romanticizing the past. We don't idealize an era where life was harsher. We simply recognize that it was precisely in that harshness that man was tempered like steel. Discomfort built character, silence cultivated reflection, and the absence of instant gratification allowed something now nearly extinct: patience, vision, purpose. Think about it. Men of the past didn't need shelves of self-help books to act with honor. They didn't need coaches to have discipline. There were no YouTube tutorials on how to be strong. They learned it in the field, in war, in daily responsibility. And today, we're surrounded by information and starving for direction. Ancient wisdom doesn't say, be happy, like a cheap slogan. It says, be worthy. It doesn't promise comfort. It demands virtue. It doesn't teach you to avoid pain. It teaches you to endure it, to give it meaning. That, my friend, is what modern man has forgotten. That's why so many are lost. They walk the world like ships without a rudder, reacting instead of deciding, fleeing instead of confronting, desiring instead of building. But not you. You're here because you know something is wrong, and you're willing to look to the roots for what you haven't found in the branches. That makes you rare, valuable, dangerous. Because the one who returns to ancient wisdom in a superficial world becomes an anomaly. Someone hard to manipulate, hard to break. And believe me, that is a power very few possess today. And you know what else? No one's going to hand you this truth on a silver platter. You won't learn it in school. You won't see it in an ad. It's your duty to unearth it, read it, live it. Because while others seek excuses, you seek foundations. And that changes everything. It changes everything because modern man, you, doesn't need more stimulation. He needs more meaning, and that meaning is buried beneath centuries of history, philosophy, struggle, and legacy. That's why today, more than ever, modern men need ancient wisdom, not as an accessory, but as a map, as a manual for inner war, as a shield against a world that wants you docile, confused, and weak. Think about it. If you want to build a skyscraper, where do you start? The foundation. But today, most people build castles in the air, with no solid base. Everything is superficial. Appearances, filters, likes. And the result? Emotional instability. Chronic insecurity, lack of direction, exactly the opposite of what the ancient sages taught. Stoic philosophy, for instance, wasn't entertainment for the idle. It was a life tool for soldiers, emperors, merchants, men who lived with death beside them, betrayal around the corner, and suffering as routine. And still, they stood firm. Why? Because their well-being wasn't placed in the external, but in the internal, in their virtue, in their self-mastery. Can you say the same? Imagine yourself in the middle of a storm. Most people run, scream, hide, but you breathe, assess, advance. Because you've been trained for this. You've studied the laws of the soul as if they were physical laws, as if your life depended on knowing how to face fear, anger, loss. And yes, it does. Modern neuroscience confirms it. Your brain needs structure, order, purpose. Without it, it unravels. It sinks. And what's fascinating is, the ancients already knew this. They just didn't call it dopamine. They called it discipline. They didn't speak of anxiety. They spoke of a restless soul. And they didn't prescribe a pill. They demanded courage. Modern psychology, anthropology, even biology all point to the same truth. Man needs challenges. He needs rights. He needs a tribe. He needs principles. But what does the world offer today? Comfort, entertainment, narcissism. They sedate you, infantilize you, but you're done swallowing that. Let me be clear. You are not just another man. The fact that you're seeking this kind of message already sets you apart. While others get lost in the superficial, you are willing to look at the essential. Do you know how many men are afraid to look in the mirror and say, "I have no control over myself"? You, on the other hand, want to take it back. And that already makes you dangerous to the system. And you don't need to become a monk or a philosopher in a robe. You just need to reclaim something essential, the power of your own decisions. That which the ancients considered sacred, today seems rare. Why? Because a man who decides with clarity, acts with firmness, thinks deeply, can't be bought. He doesn't bend, and he doesn't get distracted, because he knows every minute wasted on the trivial is a step away from his purpose. And you know it too. You feel that discomfort when you do something pointless. That emptiness after an hour lost on social media. That whisper inside, "This is not what I should be doing with my life." That's not guilt. That's your essence screaming at you to get back on the path. The ancients didn't waste time on nonsense. Not because they were better, but because they understood life is short and time is sacred. Epictetus said, "It's not that we have little time, but that we waste a lot." How many times have you felt that? How many times have you known you could be doing something great? If only you could free yourself from so much useless distraction. And here's the powerful part. You don't need to change the world to begin. You only need to change your relationship with yourself. Ask yourself, am I the master of my thoughts or their slave? Do my emotions guide me or rule me? Do I live by conviction or by inertia? Modern man has been trained to react, not to think, to consume, not to create, to seek outwardly what he can only find within. But you are beginning to break that pattern. You're deprogramming your mind with every reflection, every act of discipline. Every time you say no to the easy path, you're saying yes to your power. And that power, brother, can't be bought. It's earned, it's trained, it's forged like steel, with fire and hammer. Want a clear example? Look at the story of Cincinnatus, a Roman farmer who was called to lead Rome during a crisis. He accepted power only because his people needed him. And when the conflict was resolved, he returned to his plow. Who would do that today? Who would walk away from power without attachment or vanity? Only someone who knows that value doesn't lie in the title, but in character. That is the difference between the distracted modern man and you, because you're not seeking admiration, you're seeking authenticity. You don't want power to show off. You want it to protect, to build, to lead by example. And no influencer will teach you that. Only wisdom that has survived centuries, empires, wars, and rebirths can do that. Wisdom that remains alive, but only for those with the courage to seek it. That wisdom is not trendy, it's not viral, it doesn't sparkle, but it transforms. It doesn't promise success in 7 steps. It doesn't tell you that everything will be easy. It tells you the truth, that life is war, and that you, like every man before you, must decide, will I be a soldier or a victim? Will I embrace discipline or be dragged by emotion? Will I live by principle or by impulse? That's why I tell you, modern man needs ancient wisdom, not as an intellectual luxury, but as a spiritual necessity, because without it, we are orphans, without a compass, without a legacy. And the world wants you like that, disconnected from your roots, ashamed of your masculine nature, afraid to raise your voice, afraid to take the lead, afraid to demand more of yourself. But you already woke up. And once you wake up, there is no going back. Now every lie offends you. Every wasted hour stings. Every excuse sounds like betrayal. Because now you know there's something greater to aim for. And that greatness begins with you, with your choices, with your discipline, with your daily code. So brother, this is the time, not tomorrow, not next year. Now the world is in chaos, yes, but that's why it needs men like you. Men who study the past not to stay in it, but to build a future with more backbone, more courage, more virtue. Be one of those men. Read the ancients, apply their teachings, turn your life into your philosophy in action. Let your word be law. Let your presence command respect. Let your silence speak louder than 1,000 empty voices. Because in a world that's forgotten what a man is, you're here to remind them. Welcome to the path. It won't be easy, but it will be worth it. Because in a world of temporary men, you've chosen to be eternal.